Good morning and welcome to another Jump Advisory recruitment discussion. Over the last 3 weeks, we've been talking about ways we can take advantage of the new market, and we've discussed building a blended business approach with temp and contract and perm. We've discussed financing and umbrella services, and we've discussed outsourcing part of your recruitment process. This week, I think we need to look at something slightly different. I think it was Churchill who said we shape our buildings and thereafter they shape us. And the idea of the quote was it was more sort of fundamentally the same sort of things that we're thinking about. The buildings that we create are reflections of who we are and what we value. But at the same time, who we are and what we value are results of the buildings that we live in, we work, and we learn. And therefore, from a leadership point of view, are we shaping our business and therefore shaping us? And what shape our businesses are based on the behaviors that we encourage and the team dynamics that we create. So in the last 30 years of recruitment, I think the way I've looked at it, that there's never been such an opportunity to shape us and take advantage of the business that we've shaped because the market is so buoyant. So we need to ensure that our most valuable commodity, which is the people in our business, are fit for purpose. To create a great team, we need to shape the people. The team dynamics is behaviors, and we all know that they are largely unpredictable or controllable. Or are they? So as a leader, our role is to shape these dynamics and create our shared purpose, and then to trust, openness, and to build and create a sense of belonging and create an independent collaboration of loyal workforce who embrace the business mission and values. So as an effective leader, your ability to influence behavior and get the most out of your team, as well as the individuals that make up your team, it's all about creating that collaboration to achieve the goals and overcoming challenges. And that is what the secret of success is all about. So if you can hear me, put a hearty welcome and hello into the chat box. As always, we've got Paul Jacobs, Heather Solway, and Dave Pye with myself to discuss what our team dynamics. Paul Sharp is away on holiday. You'll be glad to hear Mr. Jacobs is in Morecambe Bay, getting some more jokes apparently from his dad jokes from Eric Morecambe. And please remember, if you have any questions, to post them in the chat box as always, and we'll endeavour to answer them. So I think last year that we've been constantly and rightly so talking about recovery, coming out of lockdown with our best foot forward. Now I think we need to think to change things up. And I think, Heather, we were talking before the webinar, and you quoted that the difference between having an opportunity against being able to deliver that opportunity is paramount to the success of the business. And we also said that this is market like nothing we've ever seen before. The window of opportunity is open, but we believe it's a small window. But if we take it, there will be the ability to shape everyone's lives in the business for the better, but only if we deliver. So let's look at what's changed and what we need to do in order to create a dynamic team to ensure we turn this opportunity into success. And let's start to think, let's go right back to the beginning. We started our webinars just over 12 months ago, and we started our first webinar talking about shared purpose and shared goals. So I just want to very quickly touch on that because we've talked about this an awful lot. So how important is the window of opportunity that corporate, team, and individual goals are aligned, and how do we create clarity so everyone sort of is facing in the right direction and pulling in the same way? So who wants to open up on that?
I'm happy to go first, if that's all right with you, Howard.
Jump in, Heather, jump in.
I think that that what you said about shared purpose and shared goals is really important, but I actually think maybe there's one step back from that as well about shared values. So I don't think it's ever been more important to understand your shared values as well as your shared purpose and goal, as you say, when we're in a moment of plenty. Yeah, so we are in recovery. There is business to go for, and it's all for the win. But as you say, we can get confused about opportunity, and as you said, the ability to execute on that opportunity, as someone I know in recruitment says lots of times. Anybody who knows me will know who that is. I've stolen that quote from him. So I think making sure that you don't lose sight of your purpose and your vision and your goals in the midst of all of this just massive opportunity that we have out there at the moment is really important.
I think
I think
that go on, Dave.
I was going to say, I'm still amazed as we're beginning to go around and visit people again and visit clients again. I'm amazed that the number of people that when you ask, what is your purpose? Still, to this day, people go, well, it's, what we want to do, and they can't roll it off the tongue. So I think to Heather's point and to what you were saying earlier, Had, I think people, individuals, leaders of the business, if they don't and cannot articulate their purpose clearly, they need to spend a little bit of time working on it. And shared means tell people. So it's that bit of work on it, get it right, and make sure that it's relevant for the times that we're in and where you want to go. I tell a story of the Nike sort of purpose. When Phil Knight writes about how he built that company, and it started off with 8 or 9 employees, their whole goal, their whole purpose was to kill Adidas. That was how they described it. And everybody could say, we are here to kill Adidas. Now, that may not be particularly relevant for us in recruitment, but just having something that everybody could articulate, everybody understood, it really resonated with that company as it grew. And for those of us on this call that maybe we've got 5 or 6 people, do you get the same message? Do you get the same answer from every single person in your organization when you say, what is your purpose? And if you're not sure that you will, then there's a little bit of work to do. That's a very positive thing.
And I think, Dave, Heather, I think if I can add to that point, it's perfectly understandable, given the last 14, 15 months, that people have had their ambitions dampened down. I mean, for a lot of people, even the guys listening right now, it's been a very trying, challenging period in their lives, in our lives. And for lots of people, I think just surviving over the last 14, 15 months, keeping their businesses up and running has been in itself the vision. So I think we are now at that point where, and you can see. I listened. I think it was Alec Reid was on the radio, or James Reid was on the radio this morning, talking about the explosion of jobs now in the UK and the lack of qualified candidates. All things that everybody listening is aware of. But the truth is that we are now at that point. You talk about Nike, Dave, and I think we've talked about the Nike swoosh, and we've said that now we're at that point where the market is going to come back very quickly. That hockey stick recovery that we've talked about, it is happening now. So this point about making sure that we readjust our visions, that we go back to thinking about success, not survival, that we start thinking ambitiously, and we convey that to the people around us. And I say we, I'm talking about we as leaders, as managers, as owners, that we make sure that we imbue in everybody around us that sense of hope, that there is an absolute purpose to the business, to your point, Dave, and it's articulated very, very clearly. Now is the time, if not now, when, to be extremely ambitious and very upbeat about what the future is going to hold, in complete contrast to where everybody was this time last year.
So I think when we talk about that and you think about that Nike methodology, if I remember rightly, Adidas had a similar thing as Nike started to really sort of dominate the market, and I think that was one expletive. Nike was their view of the opposite way round of that, but it was all having that shared goal and that shared vision. And I think what we need to start to think about is we are sharing our goal of purpose as a business, but how do they align to the corporate goal? Is that aligned to the team goal, and is that aligned to the individual goal, to make sure it all flows through? And I think when we've been going out to speak to companies and setting up business days with them, what we found is that there isn't the link between the three, and therefore that shared vision and that shared goal is really hard to sort of indoctrinate within a business unless you have your individual goals aligned to your team purpose and your corporate purpose. And that's all about having that shared goal, which sort of flips onto the question that you sort of started to talk about there, Heather, which was about shared values. And if shared purposes are the key, what about shared values, and what about an agreed vision? How does that sort of bring more purpose to the business when we start to talk about behaviors? Because what we're talking about here is influencing behaviors to create that team dynamic to take advantage of the marketplace. So when we look at that, shared values and agreed vision, Dave, what's your view on you've been very big on the shared values and agreed vision. When we talk about having those things right across the board, how do you think they capitalize now and should be pulled out from a behavioral point of view?
Well, it's interesting. I would imagine most companies, most leaders on this webinar haven't changed their values over the last 18 months. They may not have gone back and looked at them too much because they've been focusing on operational excellence and some of the things that we've needed to look at. But I think if the values that are written on the wall, that are in your appraisals, I don't know how you live those values, but if they are lived, if they are understood and lived by each of the employees that you've got, then they're great values because they matter to you and they matter to your business, and therefore they would hopefully matter to your customers and to your candidates. And that's the behavioural bit about values. There's often a debate about which are more important, values or behaviours. These are the behaviours we exhibit as opposed to values. Now, obviously, the two are very much linked. But for me, Howard, it's a case of they've just got to be something that's earth, that means something to the individuals and to the company, that are kind of a wraparound about how the company operates. Because otherwise, they're just good words to have. I mean, I know plenty of recruitment companies that have honesty, integrity, all those sort of words as their values, which are great words to have, but it's how you display them and how you live them that really makes the difference. If you can have stories as values, which I know some companies have, for example, painting the skirting board is a value of a company that I know. And the reason why that's a value is because when they moved office, their staff came in at the weekend to paint the skirting board of the new office. And the owner said, actually, that's the type of people we want. We want people that will come in out of hours to help us. So their value then became painting the skirting board. And their values are related to stories. And I think as long as they're relatable and lived, then, and you've got something behind them, I think it's great that as we go forward and as we grow again, they'll become real things.
And I think it's an interesting piece in there, isn't there, Dave, about how you do translate that into something that people understand. Yeah. So very often when you have people coming into an organization, they see the values, but they need to translate into, well, what does that mean for my job? What does that mean for the decisions I make on my desk on a day-to-day basis? And that piece about how we translate it into behaviors and meaningful, how we do stuff around here, actually is a really important part of your values.
I think it dictates, the code of behaviour. And we spoke yesterday, for example, in preparation for today about, I think you said, Heather, the bad pound and the good pound. In other words,
absolutely.
What decisions do you make relative to the companies you wish to work with? Are they asking you to do things that you know are not entirely correct or morally abhorrent? And I think values relate to that. Values and behaviours relate to that. Would you know instantly working in a business what the right or the wrong decision would be? And maybe on a lesser point, so would that apply to margins, the kind of business that you want or don't want? Does it apply to the way in which you address your candidates, your clients, and so forth? I think they have to be not just words on a wall, they have to be demonstrable. And I think that particularly when you're recruiting new people, having those new people meet some of the people in your business, aside from you as a leader or your managers, kind of helps that a great deal, I think, because otherwise, they hear from you. You're bound to say, these are our values and mean them when you're a leader of a business. But when they talk to others in the business, sometimes the most junior people, and they feel that it's palpable, then that makes a difference. And I think getting it right, making sure that you've got people that are aligned to your values and behaviours is always important, but perhaps never more important than now, as people are starting, as already, I was about to say getting into those sprint blocks, but actually we're already sprinting. We're already out those blocks, moving as fast as we can towards the line. So I think making sure that everybody is on side, and your point's valid, in that what's in it for me? I know that old WIIFM thing is something that most of us hate, but the fact is you have to make sure people in your business understand where the business is going in relative terms to where they can go. How do they progress their careers? What's going to be going on for them? I'm not talking financial, I'm talking about career development or even personal development. And those things I think need to be reinforced now so that people understand exactly what's going on and what the future can look like for the business and for them personally.
Let's look at that and let's flip that into a management point of view, because one thing that I've been working with the clients that I'm working with is that hands-on leadership with a consensus of decision-making processes. So they're going out to the business to get a better decision-making process so they can understand and listening to what the business is. But what lockdown showed us is that there's a lot of weak management out there where so that team lacks a strong leader, and that can pave the way to dominant team members taking over, which results in the lack of direction and conflict. And I've talked about conflict quite a bit over the last couple of weeks, where there's negative conflict that ruins a business and there's positive conflict that drives a business forward. But in this case, what would you address now when you start to look at that leadership point of view? What would you address now where the window of opportunity is huge, but it's only huge for a certain reason? But what we're sort of looking at is that there may be the window of opportunity which is huge, where you've got a key biller that's being, say, soiling the dynamics of your team. What would you do in that sort of situation where you're thinking, actually, they are a pain, but the window of opportunity is here. What do I do? But they're killing the rest of the team dynamics.
You know me, Howard. I'm Attila the Hun on this point. I think life's too short to have negative people around you, to be blunt. I could be more blunt. I think people that know me listening will know how blunt I can be about negative people. And I think it's entirely understandable that, and we've all done it. So I'm not pointing fingers, that we've put up with bad behaviour from high-performing consultants. And, everyone listening to this has done it, probably may even still be doing it. But the collateral damage when you have somebody that negative in your business is so enormous. And it's not surprising that often you'll find a big churn rate around that individual because no one wants to work with that person, despite the fact that they earn a great deal of money for the business. Actually, the sum of their productivity can be very negative for the organization in that nobody else actually stays long enough to make any money. So, if you ask me and honestly what I feel about people, regardless of their ability to make money, if they're negative, I would lose them.
Paul, I would, can I just agree wholeheartedly with you? And I think that very often all of us have allowed divas to kind of rule the roost because they're big billers, and so we allow them to suck the life out of the people around them. And we've all been in recruitment a long time. I can, for anybody who's never been in that situation, I will 100% guarantee to you that if you take that negative person out, it feels like a risky thing to do, but it will be the right thing to do, and you will actually end up with a better, bigger, more successful, more profitable team. So if anybody's wavering on that kind of decision, it is the big one. What I would caution, though, Paul, is the ones where it's not quite so clear cut.
Yes, no, I accept that. I'm not that brutal. I do understand.
So the fluffy HR comes in, and but right now that's a really hard decision because it's hard to find good recruiters at the moment. So I think some of those borderline decisions are more challenging than ever before. But again, you have to live your values. And living your values sometimes means losing people from the organisation, and we shouldn't be afraid to do that.
So let's flip that question then before Dave jumps in, because I think Dave will sort of like the flip of this is we talk about getting rid of the key billers sometimes who are soiling the team dynamics and really spoiling the team dynamics. What about those clients that are doing exactly the same, that are, the vacuum of CVs, the vacuum of work, that just suck it in and never get anything out, and then you carry on working with that client? Should we not be doing the same thing with those type of people? Because again, that has a massive negative effect on the team dynamic. Oh, I'm working for this client again that does nothing other than create a hole for CVs to fall down, and I never get anything back. Dave, we've talked about this before.
Yeah, well, I'm going to agree with Attila and with Heather. Because for clients and for people, I absolutely 100% in no doubt, if you've got people who are destroying your culture, they need to go. Because in language, as recruiters, we talk about big billers and high performance people. And in our minds, we're thinking people who put money on the table, which we know is important in our business. But there's more to performance than money. If they're putting lots of money on the table, but they're destroying people who could also put money on the table because of their attitude, because of the way they behave, then they're not high performing people. They are in one aspect, but the total person is more than one aspect. And it's the same for clients. Paul and I were with a client last week, and they were wrestling with a big company that was just becoming like a CV hole, where things were disappearing. They were being measured on, and they were keeping their side of the bargain, but the client wasn't. You don't need them. You need the work that we do is of such value that if your clients aren't valuing it, it's either your fault for not articulating it well enough, or you're dealing with a client that doesn't appreciate what your people do, doesn't appreciate the hard work and skill and effort that you put it in somewhere else. Yeah. You don't have to make a big song and dance about it. You could maybe ask for a meeting and just say, look, we can't do this anymore.
But Dave,
it is a great thing to do. And I've only ever done it twice. And once it really worked and once it didn't. So I can't tell you it's 100% successful, but I do think as we're on the upside now and candidates are scarce, you should be dealing with clients that value what you do.
And we shouldn't be afraid to say no.
No, we shouldn't. And there's the point, Dave, that you make, really an important point. We are now in a candidate-driven market. Everybody knows that. I mean, we are short of skilled candidates in every sector. I mean, we work across virtually every single recruitment sector. I've got clients working across just about every sector you can possibly imagine. And in every single area, some perhaps worse than others, there is a complete lack of candidate availability now, and it's going to get harder. So if you look at that market and you consider that this is a very different market to the one we left behind in March 2020, we're in a position where when we find good quality candidates, that we don't have to place those people with the customers that have limited respect for us or make life very challenging for us. Let's place them somewhere else. And that seems a bit of a flip thing to say, but the truth is that there are plenty of employers out there looking for good quality people, and we shouldn't be frightened to move those candidates, those great candidates, towards other customers where we find immovable obstacles with existing clients. Now, nobody wants to turn business away, so I think your point is absolutely valid, Dave. Do everything you can to sit down with those clients and educate them and make them understand that they need to be more open, they need to be more willing to talk, they need to move quicker, swifter, make decisions more quickly, and so on and so on. Try all of those things, of course, absolutely. But if it fails, move away, move towards customers that value you more and react more quickly, because ultimately, if you're working with these slow clients, you're going to lose money. You're going to lose good candidates.
Let's try pull this back onto behaviours then, because we're talking about behaviours that create a dynamic team, and we're sort of now trailing off a bit about down the candidate marketplace, and we understand there's a candidate marketplace out there. But let's sort of take the candidate marketplace and hold that in our forethought of our minds. But as a business leader, we shape and ignite behaviours. And recruitment has a habit of blocking behaviours, i.e. a good behaviour should be to sack that client and get rid of that client, but for some reason we don't, and we hang on to that client from there. And this creates what I call employees becoming aggressive, negative, withdrawn. You get some clients, as we talk about the big biller, who are looking for recognition seeking, etc., etc. And it can also block the flow of information across a team, which is really damaging. So to create that positive culture and that great team dynamic, which behaviors should we be looking for in our existing employees and potentially employees that we're going to recruit that will help to create that team dynamic where we live our values and live our behaviors and deliver those to our clients, and actually be honest enough with ourselves to say, actually, no, I'm going to sack that person or I'm going to get rid of that client because they don't live and sit within our mission and our values. So what behaviors should we be looking at?
I think that's interesting. I think there's two things in there, Howard, around behaviours. The first one is about when we're hiring people. We do need to make sure we get the balance right between trying to attract people to come and work for our organisation and being honest about what it's like to work there. Because where you find that incongruity, big word, between what we say when we're trying to hire people and the reality of when they actually arrive, I think that can cause some of those issues that you suggest, and also causes some of our turnover. So I think it's important that we're congruent between what we say and what we do in the hiring process. In terms of what behaviours, it depends on what your values are. So, there's a really big one for me around teamwork. But are we really interested in people who have a positive behaviour around teamwork, or have we set our organisation up to be all about the individual? And that comes back to, what do we reward and what do we measure? Things like inclusivity that I know we're going to talk about in some future. Inclusivity is a really interesting value and a behaviour. But are we set up to measure it, to reward it, to encourage it? They're interesting.
I think it's a case of it's not whether it's set up. I think it's the how we set up, and I think what recruitment does all the time. And it's interesting when you get a job specification of a recruiter, there are a long list of skills that you want, and a very small, if not microscopic, if not invisible list of the behaviours that you want. Yet when I was building a recruitment agency that we flipped into a retained business, the thing that then we went to clients with was that you hire on skills but you fire on behaviors. And so we started to get them to behavioral profile their roles, and once they behaviorally profiled their roles, we got a far better person into the business, and we found that tenure lasted longer, productivity increased, etc., because we found the right behaviors. So I think what we're saying is that the behaviors that we're looking for should be dependent on the role that we are looking to recruit into, which sort of leads that into that question which I skipped, which was about the demise of 360, and should we be putting the behavioral strengths of people into the right jobs to make sure that they have job satisfaction and therefore become more productive for you at the end. So is it the behaviors based around the job and the actual outcome of that job, or is it based on the input, which is the skills that they require to do?
I mean, look, we've talked a lot about this 360 position over the last 14, 15 months. And I think listening to the people that have joined us on these conversations, there is a view now that finding 360-degree recruiters, which has always been extremely difficult, is now even more difficult. I mean, you speak to any recruitment business out there right now, everybody is looking for 360-degree recruiters. They're very hard to find, and find the people with the right behaviours and values as well. I think this point about resetting, moving forward, realigning the vision, understanding the goals of the business also requires you to step back and look at the strengths and weaknesses of the people that work for you. Are they working in areas and responsibilities that suit their strengths? Because now's a great time to consider how you can then subdivide roles, maybe modernize the way in which you approach client contacts, looking at the way that you produce world-class customer care. How do you do that? How do you look after your candidates to a degree that's so superior to the way that you did pre-COVID, or indeed the way your competitors handle that? So is it the case, as we've talked constantly about the Ford Model T scenario, where you don't have 100 guys building 100 cars, you have people, each individual but building a car, you have individuals putting a bit on that car and ultimately selling more cars. And I think there is a very strong view, I certainly feel this, where it's much easier to recruit people if you're not trying to find 360-degree recruiters. And that also applies, I think, to looking at in a sustained way at the people you already have, and understanding where can you place them so that they are at their in their ultimate roles, that they're at their ultimate level of happiness and contentment, and that they are going to help drive the business forward, rather than trying to push square pegs into round holes.
What you're saying there, Paul, is then the behaviours of each individual role should be aligned to the actual outcome that you want from that position.
Yeah,
So if you're looking for someone to be a client-facing candidate deliverer, you want someone who is very service-orientated. If you want someone to open up new clients, you want someone who's very sales-focused, and therefore you want someone who's got a very can-do driven attitude to picking up the phone and driving those sort of things. So behaviours aligned to the role, where if you're looking at someone who's sat in a back office doing let's say timesheeting, etc., you want someone who's very absolutely detail orientated and driven from there. So again, it's all about the behaviors rather than the skills that we're looking at and working from there. But there'll be collective behaviors across the business that we want, that will be, such as we're talking about there, teamwork, Heather, team environment. Now there's a different version of what that is, whether it's collectively, outwardly, or whether it was inwardly, about having that team, which sort of leads us to sort of that sort of question that we said that at the beginning of lockdown, what managers started to do and business owners did was they were very good at addressing problems very quickly. Everyone cut costs, everyone did the right things that they had to do to keep their business alive. Well, we're in the opposite side of that, where now we can have an opportunity to really grow our business. So the question is, when we start to talk about behaviors that destroy team dynamics, I've been reading and I've been sort of hearing quite a lot of this in the marketplace. What if some members are either taking it easy at the expense of others and other colleagues? I've heard of some people returning from furlough with a very different mindset. And I'm not talking about those who are generally struggling coming back from furlough. I'm talking about those who are, not collectively putting themselves back into the business, but they're creating a real problem with regarding the group dynamics and their outcomes. What should we do from a behavioral point of view to try change that or move that round to make sure that they are being productive or being a productive member of the community?
I think as a leader, you need to spend time to understand why their behavior has changed as they've come back to what it was before we went through what we've all been through. And once you've understood it, if it's something that either you or someone external to your organization can address to help them on their way, because I think as good employers, we should always be looking to work with our people and try to make them better. If you could do that, and there's a genuine desire from the person to get back to where they were before, then you do that. That's what you do. If that isn't there, then they're probably one of the people that would be leaving your organization, because they're not displaying the attitude and aptitude that you need. For me, people need to be tenacious, they need to be good storytellers, and they need to be inspirational if they're customer facing. They're the three things that I like to look for in someone that I'd be hiring from a recruitment point of view, from, if you like, the customer facing roles. And if they haven't got those skills, but or had them but lost them, then let's see how we can get them back. If they can't be bothered, then we need everybody who can be bothered. People have to be bothered now.
I think you're right, Dave. I think we have to not underestimate. I think you've said that at the beginning. We have to not underestimate the impact that the last 18 months has had on people. So particularly people who've been on furlough for a long time. And the organisation they left temporarily last year is not the same organisation they're coming back to. It's almost like starting again. And so I do think there's a really big conversation about them, how they've changed, how the job has changed, how your organization has changed. And there's a lot to be explored in terms of how you can support people to be productive again. And it's not about getting them back to where they were. It's about helping them to be productive in the new setting, in the new context, in the new organization with the new goals and opportunities. But you're right, if that doesn't work, sometimes there might be some difficult conversations to have, but they will be easier if you've done all of that legwork to try to understand what's different now. And there are so many possible things that could be different, that there are so many opportunities for improvement in there, because there are so many potential solutions to that.
And I think, Heather, I think it starts with you in a way. I think when we talk about understanding the mindsets of the people coming back to work or are back at work now, um, you've got to step back and consider your own mindset. You know, what kind of mental condition are you in as a leader, as a manager? What impact has the last 15 months had on you? Are you, where's your head at, basically? So it's very difficult to try and figure out how to help and support others around you if actually the impact of the last 14, 15 months has been damaging for you. So I mean, I think we've spoken to, and we continue to speak to a lot of business leaders. You know, when we talk about leaders, it's almost as if we are talking about a race of human beings that are entirely separate to the rest of the planet. You know, we are all the same. We all have emotions. Only over the years, we've been taught as leaders not to demonstrate or display those emotions openly to the people that work with us. It's a tough thing to do. It's a really tough thing to do. Hence the reason why we do so much mentoring work with our clients. So I think it's important that people make sure when they start talking to the guys coming back, as they already are coming back, that they're also quite aware of their own mental condition, their own mental health. And I think that's where it all begins. Make sure that you are okay. Be kind to others around you, but it's important to be kind to yourself too.
So what we're saying is then that, you know, from that lockdown situation to where we are now, to create a good team dynamics flips back straight onto the leader and about the behaviors that they're displaying and then how they're igniting those behaviors in other people, but then taking the correct action based on the other person's behaviors with regards to retain, retrain, or if worst case scenario, removed from the business from there, which goes into that sort of thing that we've talked quite a lot about, training and developing. You know, the candidate is now, as we said, it's the biggest candidate market that certainly I've ever seen, and you know that is massively, you know, different. Do we need to be changing then what we're measuring with regards to, do we measure input or do we measure output? And that's the question that always creates a bit of jeopardy, which Dave wanted to get in today. You know, is that what should be changing? Should we be looking more at training people to deliver an output or training them on the input that creates the output?
Well, this is a really flippant answer, but what do your clients want? What would your clients like the people that work for them, who work for us, what would they like them to be measured on? I had the most eye-opening conversation, this was probably 4 or 5 years ago, with some clients in a forum. We got them in a room, a bit like we did a few weeks ago in our online discussion when we had the clients. And we sat them down and we said, what would you like your account managers, your consultants to be measured on? And on their list was nothing that was on our list.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there thinking, well, this is easy. All we need to do is ask the client. So I would ask the client, because strangely, they're not measured on number of placements and things like that and CV sent.
Yeah. I also think we risk stifling innovation if we don't do exactly that. If we tell people how to do the job rather than what the outcome is that we want, we stifle innovation.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is it's a fantastic point. I know, 3-4 weeks ago when we had those clients on, those employers on, we had our biggest attendance in ages on the webinars. And the feedback has been unbelievable. But it's an interesting point that what did we actually do? We had 3 real-life employers speak frankly, maybe not as frankly as they would do in private, but frankly, about their views of recruitment businesses, some of which was extremely positive, by the way, not all negative by any means. And that, I think, was galvanizing for lots of people that listened in. Now, it's great and that we did it, and it's great we've had such incredibly good positive feedback, but that opportunity is there for every single recruitment business that's listening today, to go and speak, to your point, Dave, to the people that use you and understand from you, or understand from your perspective, what it is they want. And I think that comes down to something very simple, to be very bland about this: world-class customer service. Because when you look at all of the really outstanding businesses outside of recruitment around the world, the ones we all know and love, what they all have in absolute common is world-class customer service. And that pours out of every part of their being. For me, if you produce world-class service, both for candidates and clients, the money takes care of itself. And I think that, to Heather's point, when we look at things like bonus plans and rewards, we always, almost regardless of everything else, pay only on revenue, when actually there are so many other pointers, so many other things that we could be challenging our people to do that would improve the level of customer service, which in turn would improve our relationships with clients and therefore produce more revenue for the business. For me, that's in a very basic level what I think all great businesses do. They focus on an unbelievably good customer service.
So what we're talking about then, if we're talking about having that jeopardy with regards to what do you train on, we know that, jeopardy, it takes bravery and courage to actually take that leap and work from there. And we've talked an awful lot about data, and leaders should always be paying attention. And so are we saying that excellent group dynamics and creating a really dynamic team is built on being able to facilitate employees' productivity, and satisfaction based on the outputs that our clients actually want? Therefore, during lockdown, data is king. Great team dynamics require ongoing observation, corrections, and guidance in order to thrive. And so, are we paying attention to the wrong area to create team dynamics? I.e., are we paying too much attention to our own people and what their input is rather than what our clients actually want? And that's the bravery and courage it takes to actually transition from being a good business to a great business. So to create a strong team dynamic, do we have to change our focus and actually truly go out there and be brave and ask our clients then?
Okay, so this is where Heather has to pay up tomorrow and buy me a big drink, because I'm going to say procrastination is the thief of time. Do you remember that? I said, you said if I said that today, you'd buy me a very large drink. So I'm claiming that drink.
I owe you one.
If not now, in terms of bravery and courage, when? I mean, the market is here now. We've had 14, 15 months to be thinking about getting our businesses back up and running and going for it. And it is entirely Dave's point about jeopardy, feeling fear, courage is required. All of those things now are absolutely there. But what a difference between this time last year and now. This time last year, everyone was looking into the abyss, not quite knowing what was coming round the corner, whether we would survive as, even physically, let alone from a business perspective. And now look at the situation. There's fear, but this is good fear. This is the fear that's about how can I grab the opportunities that are clearly in front of me, and how do I get my people to get up for it? And I think that's very much about the team dynamics, and it's very much about the courage that the leaders, us leaders, need to show. So, hanging around waiting for the right moment, that point about procrastination, that time's gone. We've now got to get on with it, get out there and really, really push forward. I'll let Dave talk about Jeopardy. I don't know. There was a program in America called Jeopardy, and you spent time in America, Dave. What was that about?
I was going to say procrastination is the thief of time, but I decided I'd do that tomorrow. My thing on Jeopardy is just that sometimes we can be very comfortable. And I think our consultants have got to know that we have got a market that is very buoyant. We have clients that need our service that we have to deliver. And we shouldn't really be having too many comfortable consultants right now. They should be all on their A game or their B game, whatever that is, to deliver and to be working hard. And where they can't deliver, educating the clients as to why they can't deliver, so the client understands that actually it isn't us, it's the market, and we've got to come up with a different solution together. And the jeopardy bit is sometimes it's just quite easy, but now we're back on it. The market's growing, and we've just got to make the most of it.
Can I chuck in another cliche, Dave, to follow on from that, which is this is the classic: if you keep on doing what you've always done, you're going to keep on getting what you've always got. It really is.
Bingo! I've got a full house on the cliches this week, guys. Full house.
but really, if this is about change to take advantage of opportunity, isn't it? There is a massive opportunity, but now is the opportunity to say, can I structure my teams differently? Can I structure the jobs differently? Can I actually use every skill and positive behavior that my teams have by allocating work or opportunity or goals in a different way to make sure that I can execute on the opportunity that is in front of me, and being brave enough to do that right now. Now's the time.
So is this the opportunity then that says that we can move away from being that recruitment company to that talent acquisition partner with our clients and really drive that? And I think lockdown's created sort of a very different team environment. And if we think about, we're no longer allowed to go out, you know, and in the past, our team building exercises have involved going to the pub and having team incentives, trips abroad, etc. But to enhance the team culture now, what should we be doing to encourage stronger working relationships with individual team members? But should we also be including our clients on that to create a stronger relationship with our clients down the line? So we're creating not just an individual team within our company, but we're creating a business team, which is our team and their team working together.
Great point, Howard.
Yeah, where you've got relationship with clients where you can do that, then I think you should include the clients. A lot of our business as recruiters is trying to find new clients, so therefore you don't have the relationship. Until you've delivered, until you've built a relationship. One thing I would say on this total talent acquisition and all of those lovely words and phrases, which do mean a lot, I would be very proud to say, and still do if I meet people, and I haven't met people for a long time, but I'm a recruiter. Call me what you like. You can call me a total talent management acquisition specialist, but actually we're recruiters. Our job is to broker talent, to find talent and to place it. You can call us a number of different things, but as long as we retain the fact that the science and art of what we do, understanding people as individuals, finding out why they want to leave one job and go to another job, be that once, 100 times, or with teams of people, we are still recruiters, and that's what we need to continue to articulate with our teams and with our clients.
Yep.
So to wash up, because obviously we're coming to the end of that, what we're saying is that shared purpose and goal and value and vision is really important when starting to create a team dynamic that is all about output rather than input. It says that we should be understanding the behavioral strengths of each individual requirement and each individual job that we have in the business, and aligning those behaviors to the people that we recruit to make sure we have the right people in the right place, and therefore benefiting from their strengths and the behaviors which will increase their productivity and their, I suppose, their endurance within the business. It also then says it takes bravery and courage to actually go out and look at what your business is actually doing and measure the right things. And that includes going out and finding what our clients measure about us to ensure that we can facilitate the client's needs, rather than, as I keep saying, every client has a meeting about recruitment, but there's never a recruiter involved in it. We have meetings about clients and how we recruit for them, but we never have a client involved in it. So we're two parties trying to solve the same problem, but we're never actually discussing together. So we should actually discuss that. And to actually create that team environment, we should be looking at different ways to build that team environment and incentivize that culture. But also what we should be doing is encouraging our relationships with not individual teams, but with individual businesses as well, to create a bigger sort of ecosystem of that team culture that creates that they feel that we are part of the business and we feel that they are part of our business, and we are working together to actually create something bigger. And that goes back to that sort of beginning where we talked about, buildings, and we talked about buildings. We shape the buildings, and thereafter they shape us. So as a business leader, we shape our business, therefore they shape us afterwards.
Absolutely. There are no boundaries. Let's innovate. If everything you've ever wanted to do in your business, now's the time. Now's the time. Don't do what you've always done, to Heather's cliche. If you've got imagination, excuse me, and the people in your business want to see changes, do it now. because if you don't do it now, you never will.
And on that note, let's do it now. Let's finish this recruitment webinar. And on that note, finish from there. Next week, we are going to bring a new series to you next week. We've got 4 weeks to deliver to you. And then in 4 weeks' time, we're going to build a very long D&I. And got some very important guests on those D&I webinars. But next week, we'll come back to you with what we're going to deliver. Again, we'll be looking at the ins and outs and the trials and tribulations of recruitment. And we think it's important that now we take stock of what we have and truly move forward in a positive light, because the market is there for a taking like it's never been before. And if we don't take it now, then we are going to lose out, and we're not going to be going out. Guys, thank you very much for your time. It's been much appreciated, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye. Take care.